my big brother, much older brother. I mean, you know,
Only
he's
by
younger
couple
though.
years.
How did that?
Yeah, whatever.
because the man grew up. Anyway, so he is many things. I'll allow him to introduce himself. I acknowledge that he's my brother. Yes, I'm, the more handsome brother, of course. But what we're here, we're talking about a few different topics. So, Mr. Brian Walters, introduce yourself. Our subject is about cricket. So, talk about your cricket credentials. See if we can trust what you're saying or not.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on here. My the one phrase that I always say is that before anything else, I am a cricket fan, and I'm sure
Even before a black man.
Exactly. So I wasn't exactly born with a cricket bat or a ball in my hand, but I'm sure that not too long after the birth, the first time I held either a cricket bat or a cricket ball. And the earliest memories of childhood, all the way from Cascade in Central St. Anne.
It's around 1955 or something.
1955, 56, so somewhere right before Jamaica gained independence.
Man.
The best memories that I have growing up are just playing cricket. You look, I tell people I didn't even own a real cricket ball and a cricket bat until I moved to this country in 1982.
What kind of bat you used to use?
Listen, me man, you have coconut bats, right?
Yeah.
You get a coconut
Yeah,
bat.
me used to play too, and not talk like I
Listen.
think never used to play.
Them have coconut bat in a Kingston.
You
Then I
understand?
must. You wait until the coconut tree limb drop down.
Yeah.
Then you get to a machete and you cut
Yeah,
out. the
exactly.
My shit there,
You
bro.
go-
All right.
All right. And then
Then
you're
you
going
go
to get a
pick up-
sponge ball. You get a
you-
sponge ball.
No, man. No.
Or you can wrap your own
man.
still.
Hold
Yeah,
on.
keep
Before
going.
you even do all of
All
that, you have to
time.
get the orange. Get a green orange.
Yes.
And a green orange is a
orange.
cricket ball.
Oh,
And you
well,
bowl a
then you
green
can-
orange. You
And
bowl
a
a
big
green
box.
orange for about 5-6 overs, and then it busts, and then you go pick another one, and you pick up the game
Oh,
same
what
way.
kind of orange is that?
And the game goes on.
1-6 under the orange done.
Yeah, but,
Not even 4.
yo,
1-6.
So
I am
we,
Not roll to orange.
we all have, we have fond memories of,
Sure.
growing up playing cricket. It's something, I retired from the sport a while back. After I set some world records when I was 9 years old, but after that I kind of retired. So you may be wondering, why are we discussing cricket? There are many reasons, but that's the main reason I wanted to have Brian on the show tonight. He's worked in, talk about what you've done, like administrative wise with cricket, to kind of set the context for that.
Sure. So somewhere around 2010, I started my administrative career in cricket. At other times, I've been a member of the board of directors of the USA Cricket Association. I have been, in fact, I'm currently a member of the youth development subcommittee of USA Cricket. I've been, vice president of the league, president of the league here, head of the umpiring association, just several different administrative issues. And then, without getting into the politics of USA Cricket, and yes, there's a lot of politics having to do with
Let's
USA
get
Cricket.
into it.
Nah, that can be a whole other show by itself. But somewhere around 2015, the International Cricket Council asked me to be one of 7 people to help develop the sport in the US, just from an administrative standpoint. And so on top of all of that, somewhere in 2013, ESPN found out that I know a little bit about cricket. So every time ESPN is producing a cricket show and that coverage is based here in the US, they have me on the production team. So the production team, ESPN.
Go on, superstar.
Yeah, man.
So,
That's how
when you
much
say-
talk about the
The
money.
same little coconut bat boy.
Same
them
little
on ESPN.
coconut bat boy.
It's on ESPN.
So if you ever see a cricket highlight on ESPN and you hear the announcer describing what happened, basically I wrote the script for that person to be saying what they're saying. It's a really interesting, it's a kind of a side gig. It happens every once in a while.
Yeah.
In fact, it doesn't happen as much anymore since ESPN found out that they can go to India and pay somebody 1/10 what they used to pay me. So my
They're
contribution
outsourced.
in those where
Outsourcing.
I'm not outsourced. I had to fall back on my day job. But as far as USA Cricket is concerned, also, every once in a while, I am their on-air personality where there's commentary that's needed. I commentate mostly on youth and women's cricket, and I'm a bow in their arrow I'm an arrow in their bow rather when it comes to being able to produce high-level cricket. So apart from all that, I don't know anything at all about cricket.
And you have a child prodigy over there, don't you?
Well, that's a whole other issue. If you look at the back of my
just
phone,
happen to have it handy.
Yeah, just
is a picture of my son Jaden, who is 13. He turns 14 in 9 days, and he is a tremendous soccer player. Matter of fact, my oldest son Kyle.
What name soccer? Yo, I
Sorry. Hey,
football.
Hey,
Football.
You man are doing
Yeah,
things, man.
disrespect, man.
Sorry.
A Facebook, is not Jamaican book. You must talk right. Stop.
Oldest son Kyle is a football player for the Charleston Battery in the USA.
Football where you use your feet.
Football where you use your foot. And so Kyle, in fact, hasn't been playing for the last several months, but his first game back post-COVID is this Sunday.
Okay.
Jaden, my younger son, is also a fantastic football player, but he's an even better cricket player. One of my biggest issues, and it's a soapbox issue for me, is that at present, USA Cricket does not have the pathway for somebody his age to be able to produce or to be able to progress in that sport. So that's why my contribution to USA Cricket right now is fueled by the commitment to not have somebody who is as talented as my son have to pick a different path because of the existence is not there for that pathway.
Or are you going to have to move?
You know what?
That's what a lot of people do.
Every year, somebody from Australia or England or South Africa said to me, "You need to bring your son here. He would be an absolute superstar."
Like I tell Jaden, it's a whole lot more money in football, so keep doing what you're doing.
not really, you know.
And he can set the bar. He can raise the bar.
I'm not privy to how much those cricketers
I ain't got
make.
nothing to do with that.
All right, so with that, we just want to kind of set the table of Brian's cricket credentials, so you can actually trust what I'm have to say. He's like the Dr. Fauci of cricket. That's what we call him.
Dr. Fauci without the complaints.
So the reason why this particular I thought of this issue for the show is that we know most sports around the world have been locked down for the past 3-4 months, but cricket just started by playing, and it started back with West Indies cricket team playing against England. So it's basically the colonized versus the colonialists, right? And as has been happening in many sporting events as a result of the Black Lives Matter movement after the George Floyd thing, the George Floyd murder. Let me not call it a thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
that people have been using their platform to make demonstrations and to acknowledge the state that Black people getting murdered left and right by people who have been sworn to serve and protect us, and nothing is happening. So the way that the West Indies, predominantly Black players, probably all Black players at this point, the way that when they started the match against England, they came out and everybody on both teams, got on, one knee, fists in the, well, I don't know if the England people had fists in the air, but all the West Indies players had fists in the air with black gloves. And, it just spoke to what sports can mean for advancing society in certain areas. And so based on that, the topic of the segment is, fire in a Babylon. Fire still a burning in a Babylon. Cricket and colonialism. The fire in Babylon reference is about a documentary that came out a few years back about the West Indies cricket team. And me, as somebody who is, I watch cricket when I'm at the match itself. I don't really watch it on TV like Brian and Daddy, right? But it talks about the importance of West Indies cricket, and so that in representing the colonized or the former slaves or sons of slaves and great grandsons of slaves playing against the slave masters. And so, Brian, based on that, I want to talk about like the history of West Indies cricket itself. We know cricket originated by England, who were colonizing, the Caribbean. But when you have international cricket, you have like Pakistan, you have India, you have South Africa, you have, England, obviously Australia. These are all countries. How did it come to be that the West Indies, a group of different islands, decided to, play as one unit? What is the history behind that? And yeah, so let's start with that question. What is the history behind that?
If you're asking me for the specific reason why we grouped as a group of separate countries to play as under one umbrella, I don't know the specific reason behind that. But West Indies cricket started, I want to say 1930 or somewhere around there. What is very important to
5 years
understand,
old back then, right?
I was the first year of college, actually.
You wish.
But understand a couple of things. Number one, the only thing that each of us in the Caribbean and all of the different English-speaking Caribbean islands, the only thing that we ever do together as one is play cricket. We're completely separate islands, completely separate governments. In many ways, we are rivals against each other. There is differing levels of anywhere between animosity and hatred for the other islands. But when you put us all under the West Indies cricket flag, we're all one country.
Isn't that what sports does, though?
And we used to be
Absolutely.
very good too.
Listen, I'm coming to that. But before we even talk about how good we used to be, understand, since the subject here is cricket and colonialism.
Right.
The majority of the Caribbean is, I would say most of the islands in the Caribbean are somewhere between 50 and 80% black. You might count Trinidad as an exception. You might also count Guyana, even though it's not an island, as an exception. But for several years, the captain of the West Indies cricket team was always a white man.
Really?
Consider that for a second.
I didn't know that.
So,
I never knew that.
going back to the 30s?
Yes. If you go back through and look at the history of each of the West Indies cricket captains, our first West Indies cricket captain who was a black man, no.
Okay. It's like, damn.
was Frank Worrell. Frank Worrell.
60s?
Frank Worrell, no, 50s. 40s and 50s. So this might necessitate us talking about the 3 Ws, because we experienced a tremendous loss in West Indies cricket about 10 days ago with the loss of Everton Weeks. The 3 Ws were Everton Weeks, Clyde Walcott, Frank Worrell. All three were born within 18 months of each other. All three were born within 1 mile of each other on the tiny island of Barbados. And all three came up at the same time and excelled at cricket. Frank was maybe you call him the elder statesman. At least he got to the point where he arose to become the cricket captain of the West Indies cricket team. And like I said, he was our first true black captain. Before that, the captain of the West Indies.
Our first true black captain. There was a pause one.
The only reason I said true is because if you know the name George Headley. George Headley is a Jamaican. He's widely regarded as probably the best batsman that West Indies ever produced.
Was he? He was a captain?
He sat in as captain for 1 test match.
Okay.
Like the white guy got injured, so they hear George go there. George, go there, go captain the team.
Go do your thing.
Okay.
But the first one who was the established captain of the West Indies cricket team was Frank Worrell. And that Worrell led us to a really, really famous competitive series against Australia in 1960-61, I believe. We lost that series 2-1. And when we were leaving Australia, they threw a ticker tape parade, 100,000 people for us, driving through the streets, even though we lost the series 2-1. And that series included a tide test, the first tide test in the history of cricket.
And the
So all of that to say,
go on.
all of that to say, we have come a long way from always being subservient to the white cricketer who was in charge of us.
Right.
To the point where we started charting our own destiny. And it's something that's really important to us as Caribbean people, right? Because we know that we have the ability. We had the best cricket team in the world. And this is not speculation, this is a fact. From 1975 to 1995, we went for 20 years without losing a single test series ever. Right? And so far and away the best cricketers on the planet. There's so many different angles to go with that, but in the context of this conversation, we assembled a battery of fast bowlers. For those of you who don't know cricket, think of people who are hurling the ball at the batsman at close to 100 miles an hour, right? And most people had 1 or 2 good fast bowlers. We had 4 or 5. Every single ball that was coming to you at that pace.
Right. So let me jump in here. As you can tell, Brian kind of likes cricket a little bit.
Just a little. Just a little.
So,
I'll go on till you cut me off.
Exactly.
No, the relevance of all that, this is, the unjust reason we talk, real issues, right? Not that sports isn't real, it's very real. But, this that time that Brian just referenced in the second 30 minutes of his speech was about in the 1970s and 80s. We moved from Jamaica early 1980s. The West Indies was a dominant cricket team, right? And what's important about that is that it wasn't just about sports, right? Yes, they were dominant, and with a black captain, Clive Lloyd from Guyana.
Yep. Hey!
Oh, you learned some.
Guyana, and I think probably all the players on the team were black or Indian. I don't remember any white players at all during that time.
Yeah, there were no white players in the 70s, no.
Right. So what it represented, as I mentioned, the Fire in Babylon documentary. You should look that up. It's an excellent documentary.
Highly recommend it.
Even if you barely know anything about cricket, what it represented was the former slave colonies joining forces together and whooping the asses of the former slave masters. So that's what West Indies cricket represented during that time period. And that's why West Indies cricket matters. Beyond anything about the sport itself, it matters from just the cohesive unit of different islands coming together, to what the slave master. So what brought that to mind again was one of the fast bowlers that Brian mentioned just now. Again, that was probably in the last 15 minutes of his conversation when we talk about the dominant bowling attack, was Michael Holden. And that was probably my favorite player, back then, because he's Jamaican, right? And he was a dominant player. Now he is a cricket analyst. And so as we came to, this past, I think it's last week, when the cricket started playing again, he gave an impassioned speech, about race and society, like literally brought the man to tears. And, Brian, as somebody who knows him personally, kind of talk about that. What was the importance of that speech? And we'll post a link to the speech for those of you who have not seen it. Kind of talk about like the way that speech hit you, and knowing Michael as you do, where you think that was really coming from, and just speak on that for a little bit.
Michael Holding, if you were not one of the most prominent cricketers in cricket history and now currently the most prominent and sought after broadcaster, is nothing if not just a genuinely nice individual. Somebody who I've known for about maybe 8 years or so, but somebody who, if we see each other now, it's almost like we've known each other our entire lives. But the one thing, he does completely. But the one thing that you can say about Michael is that he is fiercely proud. Fiercely proud. Maybe we'll get to the rebel tours to South Africa in a minute because that's also relevant. But Michael was one of those players who said, under no circumstances am I going to go to South Africa and get paid with blood money. He's somebody who has extremely strong, passionate
And what
opinions.
was the issue with South Africa? To set the context for the millennials who are watching this now.
So I'll take 30 seconds to tell that
30-second version, not the 30-minute version.
All right.
Good luck.
South Africa, everybody knows what apartheid was, it was, right? And so because of apartheid, the International Cricket Council did not allow the country of South Africa to play international cricket from the time they started apartheid until it ended in the early 1990s. So there was no relationship between the ICC or any of the other international cricket countries and South Africa at the highest level. But the next level down, the people of South Africa knew that the best cricketers in the world were from the Caribbean. And so if you have, let's say, the best 15 people in the country in the Caribbean are playing cricket, the next level down, people from South Africa would try to get our players and take them to South Africa to help them play cricket or to help them play better, help them coach, play what's called, they used to call them rebel tours. Obviously, there was so much animosity between the players who were representing West Indies and the ones who chose to go to South Africa. If you lived in a country where people who... Michael Holding was one of the players who refused to go to South Africa.
Wrap it up. Wrap him up.
Really loves cricket. And hey, we could just start the Zoom and all go to bed. Bro, tomorrow morning, we're still a chat cricket.
Oh, wow.
But so Michael was one of those players who refused to go, and rightly so, because of the status of the race relations in South Africa. So he's extremely passionate about a number of issues, not the least of which is being treated as an equal. And so when he spoke before the cricket match the other day, it was coming from a place of true passion. It was coming from a place of, I cannot believe that we as Black people still have to be fighting this fight. Holding is now maybe 66 years old or so. So he's seen everything from Martin Luther King and forward, right? And so when he just started talking about the extent to which he himself experienced racism, his own parents were victims of racism. And in the middle of that entire conversation, he just literally broke down and started crying. And you see this man who is so prominent, such a larger-than-life figure, brought to tears by the injustices of Black versus white relationships. It's something that really touched me personally, and it really made me see how affected he was by it.
Yeah, I watched that speech the other night, and it was moving, and he spoke about this really not from a cricket standpoint, right? Just from a societal standpoint. And one of the things that he mentioned was how growing up, from his days in school, he's about 20 years older than me, to present day, it is really taught that everything good is white, everything bad is Black, right? So he said something which I never knew before. He mentioned, we talk about like who invented the light bulb. Everybody knows that was Thomas Edison because that's what we were taught. We're taught that through school, so everybody know. And then he also mentioned this. But do you know that when he first invented the light bulb, he invented with a paper filament, which burned out and didn't last. And so you needed a carbon filament. Do you know who invented the carbon filament? And he's no, you don't, because you were never taught that because he was a Black man. a black man named Louis Latimer, I think is his name. And, you know, just many different things. He mentioned, you know, just how Jesus is portrayed as this white man. And they talk about Judas, who betrayed Jesus. They always portray him as somebody dark.
Yeah.
So, like, these things are, you know, subtle, but they have a purpose. And what it does is, that's why, you know, as Holden himself mentioned, when he's thinking back to his parents, they went through the same nonsense. He went through some of this nonsense, and his kids are going through the same nonsense. So just like, you know, enough, you know, what and I doubt that when he started talking about this, that he imagined that he was going to break down in tears.
No, I don't
like,
think he did.
You know, when something really hits you, you know, you're talking about it, then you just move that way. So I thought
emotion takes over.
Yeah. So I mean, everybody, whether you follow cricket or not, you know, again, we'll post the link to that speech, and it's something that we can all relate to. Brian, you have the floor for the next 30 minutes.
I want to go back to what
I'm joking. Not really 30 minutes.
Because you know he'll be there for 30 minutes.
Look,
Yeah.
the next, look, I have a hard stop. I have a hard stop at 5 o'clock because that's when the test number 2 starts. So I can go from now to 5 o'clock.
I bet as a madman.
But let's go back to the beginning of the test match last week. At least a little bit before that, because Chris mentioned about how everybody on the field took a knee before that game started. So go back about a month.
You call it a game? Isn't it a match?
Match.
Disrespect you.
Sorry.
First,
Well, the match
soccer.
started.
All right, go on.
But before, maybe a month earlier, there was talk. This is when the George Floyd murder was top of everybody's mind, literally all around the world, right? And there was talk about the West Indies cricket team and what were they going to do to show solidarity with their brothers and sisters in America, right? We have several issues in the Caribbean, but let's just assume that race relations is not one of them. But in order to show solidarity, they felt committed to do something. And so Jason Holder, the captain, said, you know what, whether we take a knee or not, we are in solidarity with our brethren in the US. Maybe 2 weeks before the match started, Holder displayed the shirt that they were all going to wear, and they had Black Lives Matter on the collar of the shirt that they were wearing. A week before the test match started, the English Cricket Board announced that all of their players would also wear the same logo, Black Lives Matter, on their lapel. When I tell you that that's such a huge development. And so now fast forward to when the game was about to start last Thursday, right? Last Wednesday. England is batting first, so they went out first. We're in the field, and when the English batsmen walked out and they took their positions at each end of the wicket, and then on cue, all 11 West Indians, the 2 Englishmen at the batting, and the two umpires all took a knee.
Wow.
And all of the reserve West Indies cricket players and all of the Englishmen who were sort of around the boundary line, they all joined in and they took a knee. And then all of our players each had a black glove on. And so each of us was on one knee with a black glove in the air for 30 seconds. It was one of the most moving and the most powerful instances where we showed solidarity with a movement that has taken the world by storm. And it truly set the table for a series that, in my mind, is above just cricket. Because cricketers are sportsmen, and sportsmen have such a platform. You know, you hear the foolishness. I really don't want to go on a tangent, but you hear the foolishness about...
Really?
Shut up and dribble.
Oh, you don't want to go on a tangent?
People will say, shut up and dribble and just stick to sports. People don't realize that if you have a platform, you absolutely need to use that platform to draw issues to something that you're committed to. And that's
I think Chris has something to say about that.
It was just,
He's just itching to talk.
Yes. I absolutely had chills watching that, and it's one of the most powerful moments that I've seen.
Yeah, so last, and actually our topic after this is you know, that's a perfect transition to that. Last question. How important do you believe that West Indies cricket particularly is to
The history of the game.
no, not that, but as we're talking about the impact of sports and society, to drive in societal change, let's say just throughout the West Indies. We have an indication of, globally, the importance of that specific act that you're talking just now,
Right.
and similar things. But for the West Indies in general, how important is West Indies cricket towards societal change throughout the West Indies, generally speaking?
Captain of the West Indies cricket team is a young black man from Barbados. Yeah, Jason Holder. Tall guy, 6'7". Anyway, I was about to go on another tangent. I was about to talk about the amount of bounce that he gets.
Brings me back to a time when. All right, go on.
The head coach of the West Indies cricket team is from Trinidad, Phil Simmons. Phil Simmons, right? Another black man. The head of the West Indies cricket board is Ricky Skerritt. He's from St. Kitts. So everybody who is in a position of power throughout the West Indies cricket team is a black man from the region. I think that there's no more unifying force in the Caribbean and nothing else that is able to bring us all together more than the West Indies cricket team, particularly the West Indies cricket team that is doing well. I will tell you that last week, Sunday, when we won that game on Sunday, and by the way, that test match that was played, when we won that match on Sunday, everybody who had any opinion regarding cricket was banking on us to lose this entire series, probably lose 3-0. We toughed it out and we won the first match. Anybody my phone just was vibrating the entire afternoon because of how well we did. And these are people contacting me from all over the world, including the Caribbean. There's nothing that brings people in the Caribbean together more than the West Indies cricket team excelling. Maybe more so than, let's say, Usain Bolt or
one island. Yeah.
A former cricket player.
Everybody, you have some people who in the Caribbean, for when Bolt wins 100 meters for maybe 45 minutes, everybody in the Caribbean is Jamaican, and then they go back to their own corners. When the West Indies cricket team does well, and the West Indies cricket team is comprised of players from each of the English-speaking islands of the Caribbean, it has an effect that uplifts all of us and brings us all together, and we're all cheering for the same thing, and we're all rooting under the same maroon flag. It is a complete unifying force for all of us. And so it's always going to be to our benefit that the West Indies cricket team represents so much more than just the individual contributions from all the different islands. It's truly a unifying force that brings us all together. I cannot overstate that enough.
Wow, people, and he did that in under 20 minutes. Hey, you see the growth taking place on our airways tonight. Big up this.
Look, I'm telling you, I can't go till 5 o'clock. I'm just getting warmed up. Hey, I'm just playing myself in right now.
And explain what playing is. No, don't.
No.
You need to read the pitch, see how the ball is bouncing off of it. See what the carry is like to the keeper.
Yeah, so I mean that again, I'm just reasoning with we talk different issues with an angle, and that was just a very important speech that that Brian gave just now about it is more than sports, right? And I'm speaking particularly for the West Indies, given that our audience is primarily people of Caribbean descent. And from my perspective, cricket, because West Indies cricket has seen better days. Let's say that, but we have to realize why it matters. Why it matters, and it is, as Brian said, it's a unifying force throughout the Caribbean. When Bolt winning gold medals, yes, everybody you know, is celebrated for
Caribbean
that
too.
moment, but it's, you know, it's one island. But there is nothing else that unites Caribbean people. Not CARICOM, nothing else that unites us more than West Indies cricket.
CARICOM not really
So,
really
support West Indies cricket. It matters. And, you know, Brian will tell you about, you know, get your kids involved in cricket and all that. We'll give him another hour on the next show. Actually,
as a matter of fact, Brian,
after
what's
the
your
trophy,
favorite?
go on.
What's your favorite bowling technique?
Oh, Lord.
Which one you prefer?
No.
It's just an after walk question. Let him answer.
I'm Jamaican. We just spent half an hour talking about Michael Holding. Of course, it's fast bowling.
10,
Really? No
9,
spins?
8,
You don't like the spins?
7,
Where do you think I come from?
6,
Where do you think I come
Silent
from?
but
5,
deadly.
Listen to me. In the
4,
Caribbean, we say a spin
alright,
bowler is a bowler
Chris.
who can't bowl fast.
1.
Mute,
Alright,
mute them
Yaka.
too. Mute them.
Yeah,
Mute
now
them.
mute them. All right.
Yeah, mute them.
I like Silver with Yaka.
Hey,
Exactly.
Brian, big up yourself. You
Yeah.
know, stay on with us.